Hello, my name is Mrs. Terwelp. I am your child's reading teacher this year. This slide is all about me. So I have been teaching for a long time. This is my 27th year. I've taught a lot of different grades. I started out teaching 6th grade when I first graduated college, and then I taught primary for quite a while. I've taught 1st and 2nd. I've been a literacy coach, and I've done a bunch of things. I also coach track. I'm one of the junior high assistant track coaches, and I've taught it or coached it for 5 years, and this will be my 6th year this year. You can also see in the pictures that is my husband, Mark. We've been married for 22 years. We have 2 children, Ben and Ella. Ben is 19 and in college, and Ella is 17 and she's a senior. If you ever need to get a hold of me, I'd recommend trying my email first. That's usually the best way to get a hold of me. I try to check it quite often. If you would like me to call you, please indicate that in the email. I'll be more than happy to call you. So this is the reading class format. The first 10 minutes are independent reading time, and I try to spend that time conversing with 2 to 3 students about their reading. And then we do a short mini lesson about what we're going to be learning about in time to work during that time or after that time. So our first quarter curriculum, we are right in the middle of that right now. We do Greek and Latin vocabulary units. Those are done every quarter. The first quarter, we only have 2. So we chose to do the Greek and Latin roots because, first of all, it's in our standards. And it's in our standards because knowing the Greek and Latin roots really help the kids to decode new words and to know the meaning of new words in their reading. We also, our big unit for this quarter is an informational text unit. We do a lot of different things about finding the central idea, figuring out how the author is conveying the central idea, talking about fact versus opinion, talking about the different kinds of opinions writers can have, whether they're based on fact or just based on their personal beliefs, talking about how to get information from different sources, the difference between primary and secondary sources. We will also be doing writing about the central idea of a text, and we will be starting that next week. You can see below that there are 4 assessments this quarter. The 2 vocabulary tests add up to one of the other assessments, and you will see that throughout the year that the vocabulary tests are weighted a little bit less because they're not as intensive as the other assessments. Second quarter, we continue with the Greek and Latin roots. We do 3 units during that quarter. We also do a novel unit during this quarter. The students do get choice on which novel they would like to do. I give them usually about 4 different choices per class. I give them a brief summary. They pick which one they would like. And then usually they get their first choice. If not, they get their second. And then we use those texts to teach the different skills for that quarter. So second quarter is all about learning about characters and learning about plot, how the authors develop the character and point of view. We also do a lot of discussion about our books. I'm not quite sure how that's going to look this year with the different restrictions we have, but we'll figure something out. So you can see at the bottom there will be a test over that unit. There will also be another writing assessment, and there will also be 3 vocabulary tests. So third quarter has 4 vocabulary units because it's the longest quarter we have. We'll also be doing another informational unit about text structure and point of view. This used to be 2 units that we put into 1, but you can see that we still have 2 different tests for it because it was just a little too much to have on one test for the students. So we look at how authors can put their text together, what kind of formats they can use. We talk about their points of view, whether they're trying to persuade or just to inform. We look at the different arguments and claims that authors use, different kinds of evidence, and we look for bias and look for whether or not the author has a specific agenda when he or she wrote this. The last quarter includes the last 3 vocabulary units for the year. We also do another novel unit of the student's choice. And that one we talk a lot about author's craft, what the author does to convey his or her purpose and theme. We talk about the difference between different kinds of media and how that affects the story. We do 3 vocabulary tests during this quarter. We do a literary theme analysis task, which is a longer writing than the other 3 during the year. And they also have a literature discussion rubric as an assessment. And again, not quite sure what that's going to look like, but I'll figure it out. So grading, 60% of their grade is performance. So that is any vocabulary tests, reading tests, their writing, and then 4th quarter, their discussion rubric about their literature discussion groups. Everything else is a practice grade. Because performance is weighed more heavily, they do get multiple attempts or 1 extra attempt at a test. So let's say a child is not happy with his or her score. The child will talk to me. They will get a relearning activity to do, either on paper or virtually, and then the child will retake the test at win time and at a later time. You can see the materials needed for class. One of the advantages I have found with them staying in the same room is they usually have their materials. So that has been one advantage that I have found. There aren't very many, but that has been one advantage I've found. Specific homework grading practices. Work is done in class. Most work, there will every once in a while be homework for my class, but not very often. If a child works hard, most of the time we get things done in class. It is the child's job to talk to me if there is a concern about their grade or about a missing assignment. No-name papers are often a reason why a child will have a missing assignment when they've turned something in. This year we are doing a lot more virtually, so that's not happening as much. However, if a child turns something in without a name, obviously it will show up missing in the grade book. Microsoft Teams. Microsoft Teams is new to the students this year. It's also new to us. So I'm learning it along with them, but I think we're doing okay. So I try to update, or I do update our team page every day. In the lessons tab, I will say what we are doing in class, and I expect the students to look at it. I usually reference during class. If a student is at home, especially if a child is at home for a long time period, like a quarantine situation, I really need the child to be looking at this as much as possible so he or she can stay up to date. Every day I will put on there what we are doing in class. I will put anything that can be done at home or seen at home on that lesson day, so the child can hopefully stay caught up. If I'm doing a presentation like a PowerPoint or a Prezi or a Nearpod, something like that, I will put it on there with voiceover so that the children can access some teaching at home while they are not able to be here. Behavior policy. For the most part, the kids are doing just great. So basically my overall policy is if you do your job and let me do my job, we're good to go. So if expectations are not followed, obviously they're verbally warned. If this behavior continues, they will get a classroom referral. A classroom referral is just basically a written warning. I tell the kids it's kind of like when someone gets pulled over by the police officers, they can either give them a verbal warning or they can give them a written warning. So a written warning is just basically like, hey, slow down, cut it out. And it does go in Skyward, but that is just so that I can keep track, and so that as a team of teachers, we can kind of see if we see a pattern with a child. But I don't contact parents about classroom referrals. You will be contacted if a child gets more than 3 classroom referrals in a 2-week time period, or if there's a more severe behavior, then I will contact you, of course, immediately. So please let me know if you have any questions about that. For the most part, the kids have been doing great. Additional policies. Cell phones should not be visible or heard during reading class or any class, really. They have devices to use for their schoolwork. If they want to get their phone out for any reason, I have them ask me. My other expectation is that they be reading at the bell. So the minute the bell rings, they are supposed to be reading. So if they don't have a book for whatever reason, I do have magazines that I have on my cart when I come into the room. I do allow bathroom and drink breaks as long as I'm not in the middle of teaching. I'm perfectly fine with them using the bathroom. I know sometimes they just need to get up and move. They can, speaking of getting up and moving, I am fine if they lie or sit on the ground while they're reading or doing their independent work. They can also put their feet up on their desk as long as I'm not teaching. I mean, my thinking is they're stuck in that same area all day, that they need a little bit of grace at this time. However, when I am teaching, I do expect them, of course, to be sitting in their desk like normal, trying to show with their body that they're listening. But if a child, like I've had some kids like, can I stand up for a while? I'm like, sure, go right ahead. So I'm just trying to be a little bit as understanding as I can during this time period, because I know that it's hard on everyone. Quarter book challenge. I do really, really, really push the kids to read as much as possible for a variety of reasons. You can see on the left of your screen there. Reading is so beneficial to them in so many ways. One of the ways that I try to encourage them is by doing the quarter book challenge. So my challenge to them is to try to read at least 10 books over the course of a quarter. 6 of those have to be from the 3 genres that they chose, and most of them are chapter books. The longer, if it is a very long chapter book, like if it's over 300 pages, that counts as 2 books. 600 is 3 books, etc. So that way the kids don't shy away from reading longer books just to get their numbers up. I want them to read what interests them, and if they're ready for a longer book and they want to try something, I want them to do that. I'm also keeping track of my books for them, and I'm challenging myself to 12 books. So we'll see how I do. This just kind of shows you a little bit with vocabulary, why it's so important for students to read. Kids that read at least 20 minutes a day are exposed to almost 2 million words per year, whereas you can see if a child only reads 1 minute per day, they're exposed to about 8,000 words per year. So the vocabulary you and I and students use when speaking that we hear on television is actually a very small amount of words compared to what we see in text. So we need to try to encourage them as much as possible to read. Speaking of reading, this year, due to COVID, our library is virtual, meaning that they check out books and return books online using the BookSource Classroom website. So I think 1,300 of our books, 1,400 of our books are on that website, uploaded on there with the cover art. So the students can go in, search for books that they are interested in, and check them out. When I get the book, I get the checkout, I fill it the next morning, and I deliver it to their classroom. I joke with them, it's like they're getting an Amazon delivery. And when they're done with it, they return the book on BookSource. They are prompted to leave a review to help their classmates to get an idea about some of the books that are out there. The book is put into then the quarantine box, is what we call it. And on Friday afternoons, I empty the quarantine box to put the books away. That gives them 48 hours to sit until Monday morning. I can't then pass them back out again. If they are waiting on a book, or they finish a book and they don't have one during reading class, I do have magazines with me. They can always look at those. Those go in the quarantine box also when they are finished. They can now check out 2 books at a time if they like. They were begging me to do that, so I finally relented. So a lot of kids have like a book in reserve, which is a good idea. Just one final note about the library. There are a large amount of books in there. I have not read every book that is in my library. Please talk to your child about like what is and is not appropriate for your family. For example, I've had a couple students in the past whose parents didn't feel comfortable with them reading about witchcraft, like Harry Potter, etc. If that is in your family's value system or something similar, please talk to your child so they make appropriate selections for your family. Last thought, just know that I will do my very best to make this a great year for your child. I love what I do. This year is not without its challenges, but I am still very happy to be here and very happy that you've chosen to have your child here. So I will do everything in my power to make this a safe and wonderful school year for your child. Please know, however, I am not perfect. My husband would definitely agree with that. And I do make mistakes. So if I do, like with grading, with putting, grades in or something like that, please have your child talk to me. And I am pretty approachable to talk to, and I will do what I can to make it right. The kids can always reach out via chat or email too. That works really well for them to ask questions also. If you are upset about something, if something happens to upset your child this year, please let me know. I'm a mom of two. I've had kids, one graduate and one going to graduate this year. And, things happen, but I always try to look at the other side too, and then work together to try and find a solution. So hopefully this answers some of the questions you might be having. If you have any additional questions or any concerns, please reach out to me. I am very excited to have your child here. Thank you for trusting us with your child this year, and we will do our very best to make this an amazing year for them.